right, folks, we are back, and we are black in the dark here. WLTH 1370M, that is 92.7 in the FM dial. If you're nasty. Hopefully one day we'll get our Miss Jackson poster back. All right, folks, hope you enjoyed hearing Human Nature by Michael Jackson as much as I do. Jeff Porcaro, definitely one of the great musicians of the 20th century. Doesn't get his props, and that's why I do musical spotlights, so musicians like him can get their props. So happy, and rest in peace to him. And, of course, Michael Jackson, maybe the most famous entertainer who ever lived. Speaking of Michael Jackson, there's a whole lot of events around the city of Gary in the lead up to the release of the film Michael. The Gary International Black Film Festival and the Gary Arts Council are organizing a series of events that highlights Gary's historical connections to Michael Jackson and the Jackson family. So you might need to look that up. Look up Tony Simpson and the Gary International Black Film Festival for all the events and all the different places that they are going to be having Michael Jackson celebrations in the next few weeks. All right, folks, let's get back to business. I told you guys earlier that we were going to get into one of America's stickiest subjects, freedom of speech. Yes, freedom of speech. What exactly does it mean? Well, a player for the Chicago Bulls named Jaden Ivey just figured out very recently in the last few days that freedom of speech from a sheerly legal perspective does not mean that you can say anything and keep your job. For more context, the Bulls waived said Mr. Ivey on March the 30th, citing conduct detrimental to the team after he posted a long Instagram video criticizing the NBA's support of Pride Month. You see all the sports teams support Pride Month. Now, they're all in bed with the LGBTQ community. And he criticized LGBTQ people in general and said that it was unrighteous. So, I don't want to just put words in the man's mouth. I'll let you listen to some of what he had to say because he did have a few videos. But this is essentially what he had to say.
That the world can proclaim LGBTQ, right? They proclaim Pride Month and the NBA. They proclaim it. They show it to the world. They say, come join us for Pride Month to celebrate unrighteousness. They proclaim it. They proclaim it on the billboards. They proclaim it in the streets. Unrighteousness. So how is it that one can't speak righteousness? How is it one that how are they to say that this man is crazy?
Okay, that is former Bulls player Jaden Ivey talking about his issues with the NBA having Pride Month and celebrating what he says is unrighteousness. It wasn't just one post. He went on multiple live stream rants over several days talking about religion, proclaiming his religious beliefs, talking about, of course, anti-LGBT, statements and other controversial remarks about religion and society. He called out the NBA for celebrating unrighteousness. Now, the NBA and the Bulls have said that his statements are seen as conflicting with team values and a PR issue. Jaden Ivey himself has responded and said the Bulls were lying about the reason he was waived, and he claims that he is being punished for expressing his Christian faith. I'd like to hear what a lot of you guys would have to say about this. Give me a call, 219-885-1371. The number again, 219-885-1371. Make sure you put the one there. Because, you know, he's framing his comments as religious belief and not hate speech. Now, this situation essentially touches on a reoccurring tension in sports, which is free speech versus league values, company values. Now, technically, freedom of speech is a legal construct. It's the First Amendment, where the government shouldn't make any laws against your personal opinions. And so a lot of people who are defending the NBA and defending the Bulls for getting rid is essentially, you know, shuffling Mr. Ivey out or saying, look, just because you have freedom of speech in which the government can't come to your house and arrest you, that doesn't mean that you have the freedom to say anything you want to say without any consequence, which is true. But let me just say this. There is a social construct of freedom of speech as well. And this is very sticky, and I'm always very leery about people on the left who support censorship of people's personal views. Because like I always tell people, you ain't going to be in power. Look at the Trump administration, how they did Jimmy Kimmel. Okay? The legal definition of freedom of speech is obvious. The government can't come to your house because you have certain views and political opinions. Though we are seeing that even eroded as people who posted anti-Zionist speech and are criticizing Israel's war in Gaza against the Palestinian people, and people who've criticized our government's involvement in the Gaza war have been getting, like, the police have been showing up at their homes and asking them, did you say this on social media about Zionists, or did you say that, like even they didn't get arrested. I don't think most of them have been arrested. But there have been times when people like Mahmoud Khalil was actually put in jail for being pro-Palestine. And we've seen that. And Trump's and Marco Rubio and these people's reasoning is they're immigrants, therefore they don't get a freedom of speech. Now, Donald Trump's sister, Marianne Trump Barry, is a judge. And in the 90s, she actually ruled on a case that set legal precedents for this, saying that immigrants have freedom of speech in America and can criticize the American government even if they're not citizens of the United States. Now, that's how we know Donald Trump knows that that's not true. Now, to be fair, Donald Trump may not have any real interest in his sister's career as a judge. Donald Trump doesn't seem to be a very curious man when it comes to a lot of things. So maybe he just doesn't care or doesn't talk to his sister or doesn't have any real, you know, interest in her legal career. But it is a little bit bizarre that a man whose sister ruled on this very topic would take such a maximalist approach in the other direction. Now, that being said, the legal construct is that the police can't come to your home and the government shouldn't be able to arrest you for having an opinion. And then you get other people who say stuff like, well, the government's not coming to his house or the government's not arresting him, so everything is fine. But I'm here to defend the social construct of freedom of speech as well. Imagine if McDonald's said nobody who supports the Democrats can work at McDonald's anymore. That's not the government coming to your home. That's not the government, suing you or something for free speech, for your opinions. That is a private company, a private corporation, McDonald's, saying, you shouldn't be able to work here because you support the Democrats. What if McDonald's said, if you support Black Lives Matter, you can't work at McDonald's anymore? Many people on the right view Black Lives Matter as a hate group or as a racist group. What if McDonald's said, you support abortion? If you support abortion, and a woman's right to choose, you can't work here at McDonald's anymore. This is a pro-life company, and we will only support people. There would be outrage. There'd be protests. There'd be outrage, and rightfully so. Because free speech, freedom of speech, is not just about the legal construct of having the ability to say what you want to say, or being able to have whatever opinions you want. There's also a social construct. There's also a belief that if I work at McDonald's or Walmart, and in my free time I go to an anti-war protest, then I'm not going to lose my job either. And if I did lose my job for going into an anti-war protest, there would be a lot of people who are completely outraged by that, and they should be. Now, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with what Jaden Ivey said, but I will say that America claims to be a 70% Christian nation. Am I wrong? America is a 70% Christian country, at least on surveys that they take, 60, 70%, somewhere in that range. All he did was cite the reasoning of the book that most people who call themselves Christians in America say they're following, which is the Bible. The Bible is not ambiguous about how it feels about a man laying down with another man and a woman laying down with another woman, or sodomy. So, are we at a place where just merely quoting biblical scripture or having biblical opinions will be seen legally as hate speech, or not even legally, but in the social construct, will that be seen as hate speech from here on out? What if I'm anti-adultery? If I speak out against adultery and say adultery is a bad thing, should that be enough for me to lose my job? If I say thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, will I lose my job for saying that? At what point do we understand that freedom of speech is not just a legal construct, but a social construct as well, where we accept that our friends and neighbors and family members often have different opinions about things than we do? Jaden Ivey didn't threaten any gay people. He ain't out harassing any gay people as far as I know. He's not committing any hate crimes at night. He just has an opinion that that lifestyle is unjust and unrighteous. I believe he has a right to that opinion. And I don't think he should have to lose his job for having an opinion and voicing that opinion. Any more that I would say that somebody who believes that eating meat, there's a lot of vegetarians and vegans and militant vegetarians and militant vegans that exist in this world now, who think that all animal products are immoral. There's a lot of people who walking around today who think that in the future we will view eating meat and eating animal products and using animal products on the same level that people see slavery and genocide. There's a lot of people who believe that. Very famously, Prince, the artist Prince, used to not allow any meat to enter the premises of his house and recording studio, Paisley Park. He said if it had parents and a face, it can't come in this premises. So there's a lot of very strong militant vegans and vegetarians who not only believe that eating meat is wrong, but believes that eating meat is immoral. 90% of our country eats meat. So if an athlete comes out tomorrow and says, I think eating meat is immoral and wrong and whatever. Does he lose his job? Does she lose her job? I know I'm going to get a little bit of heat for this, but we went from being, asked for tolerance and acceptance of the LGBTQ community to having them demand compliance, absolute compliance in every single facet. You're not allowed to have an opinion. And if you do have an opinion that they don't like, their stance is, we're going to ruin your career, your life, whatever. We may not be able to put you in jail due to the legal construct of free speech and the First Amendment, but we certainly will ruin you. And I do believe that's a dangerous precedent. That is a dangerous precedent. I believe in a free society, people have a right to have their opinions. And not just from, be free from government harassment, but be able to have their opinions and to be able to make a living as long as they're not, bad at their jobs or something. As long as you are doing your job or whatever. Now, if you're beating up gay people at work, then yes, I agree. If you're fighting at work and cursing people out at work who are gay, then yes, I would argue that is disruptive. But merely voicing an opinion is not the same thing as, beating people up and, harassing people, etc. Now, I know Brother Jaden Ivey has been dealing with some mental health issues. His wife seems to be saying that he's got some mental health issues. That's fine. But in that case, then they should be fighting for him to get help. Isn't that what the issue should be? Get the man some help? As opposed to just casting him out. But we live in a world now where you're not allowed to have an opinion. You're not allowed to have an opinion at all. I'm sorry. And freedom of speech is not just a legal construct, it's a social construct. And we used to understand that as a society, and I don't like where this is going. I really don't. If you don't like what Jaden Ivey has to say, fine. But he gets the right to say it. All right, folks. Oh, this is the last break. When I get out of I got to go to a break really quick. I'm sorry, caller. When I get back from the break, I'm going to have to get out of here. I should have called earlier. All right, folks. We'll be right back after these.